If you all can hear me and see me, I would love for you to just drop in the chat where you are listening from. If you can hear me and see me, drop in the chat where you're listening from. All right, we are live on YouTube, my friends. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Alrighty, we're gonna let some more folks in. We got Shreveport, Louisiana in the house. We got Texas, Parkville, Maryland, Westminster, Maryland, Brooklyn in the house. Hey, Brooklyn. Hey, Chicago. Awesome, awesome. So I live in Maryland, but I am actually in Florida, which is part of the reason my internet was raggedy a few minutes ago, because I am not at home. So thank you so much for um, your patience as we got our streaming and our internet to cooperate. So we're going to hop right into it. No, I don't want to do that. Okay. All right. So we're going to just hop right into it and talk about recession proofing your practice, regardless of what is happening in the economy. That's the conversation. And if you are in VIP, we're going to have some hot seats, and we're going to have an opportunity to do some kind of walking through what your offer might be to diversify your income, because that's really one of the ways that we can recession proof our practices. And so I'm actually going to, this is an extension of the conversation of a talk I delivered last week that I delivered live at an event hosted by Therapy for Black Girls. And so, so many of you all were not in that room, and you were like, hey, Ajetta, we would love access to that. And so that's part of the reason we're having this conversation today. Let me just get the, hold on, y'all, just one second. Let me just pull up YouTube so that I can see their comments over there. All right, so it looks like we are live on YouTube. Okay, excellent. All right, so if you're over on YouTube, I see that we have Reese from South Carolina. Excellent. So I just wanted to make sure that I can see your messages. All right, so excellent. I'm going to share my screen to just dive right into the conversation. Um, since we are just a little bit behind time, and I want to honor that you've carved out this time together. And so we can actually get into the implementation. So if you've ever attended a training with me, just put a yes in the chat, just so I know who's here. That also determines how much of an introduction I do today. Yes, awesome. We have some folks that have been here before. Excellent, excellent. I love that. All right, so we're talking about recession proofing your practice. So building impact and income in any economy. If you would like to be able to build a practice that is recession proof, right, that isn't impacted by the changes in the economy, type one in the chat for me, whether you're on VIP over here in Zoom with us, or if you're over on YouTube, wherever you are, type a one in the chat if you would like stable, consistent income, regardless of what's happening in the larger economy. Yeah, I suspect that a lot of us that maybe weren't thinking about the ways in which our businesses might be impacted by what's happening in the larger economy or the larger world, socially and otherwise, until COVID happened. And COVID was um, really a surplus space for many of us because we didn't really have to do marketing as therapists, right? We could kind of just open our doors. There was an influx of clients, an overflow of clients, and the barriers to accessing care really were minimized in a lot of ways because telehealth was available and accessible, right? With very little barriers. And most co-pays were waived for many clients, right? And so the things that normally get in their way or their ability to engage in mental health really wasn't there. People were actively looking, right, for therapists. And so it was a different time to be building a business. And so now some of us are noticing that the impact of what happened during that time frame, the influx of VC-backed companies entering the marketplace, right? The impact of insurance companies launching their own in-house mental health services, right? And those types of pipelines has impacted our referrals. If you start needing, if you're like, Jetta, I need more referrals, there's happening with the referrals because the demand has not changed. The demand hasn't changed, but the referral pipeline seems to be different. If you're experiencing that, word referral. Just make sure that we're having a conversation that really addresses what's happening for the bulk of us, right? If you are in a space where you're like, Ajay, I need more referrals. Maybe I need more private pay referrals. But there's something that has shifted in our industry. There's a lot of things that have shifted with the integration and mass adoption of AI, with the mass adoption of a lot of these text therapy platforms. We can talk about the integrity of those spaces. That's a whole conversation that we won't get into today. What I really want to make sure, and I'm going to share this with you all, is it is important that we think about how do we want to be responsive, not reactive, but responsive to what we are seeing? And how do we want to disrupt? Because I think there's an opportunity for us to do some disrupting of what we're seeing in the marketplace, right? And leading the way that AI, automation, digital health services in the mental health space are being rolled out and spearheaded, as opposed to this wait and see aspect, because we have been able to see the impact of that with the integration or rollout and mass adoption of places like Talkspace and Headway and Alma and Grow and all of these tech companies that have entered the mental health space, right? And so a little bit about who I am, because I don't want to make the assumption that we know one another. And so I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about who you are and who you serve in the chat so we can get to know one another. One of the other reasons that I do that, outside of me being able to use your expertise in the examples to make this practical alongside the strategy, is because oftentimes there are folks who are in the room, whether you're on Zoom and VIP with me, or if you're on YouTube, that are your niche mates, that are your counterparts, that are in your communities that you should be connecting with, that could be referral partners or collaboration partners for you. And if we don't tell people who we are and how we serve, it makes it really hard for us to know how to refer, how to partner, how to collaborate. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm getting some head nods on Zoom. Thank you. Thank you for that. And so just a little bit about who I am. Okay, just a little bit about who I am. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor. I'm trained as a supervisor, but my clinical expertise is in grief and trauma. And so I am a certified thanatologist, which is study of death, right? I'm an author, best-selling author, but I am also personally a poverty and trauma disruptor. I am the first in any kind of generation of my family, one, to have a doctorate, and two, to truly disrupt the addiction pipeline, right? And generational pattern, as well as the poverty and trauma pattern. My children are not inheriting that, right? Um, and so I really would love to know who's in the room. Who's in the room? And I want to make sure that we're framing this conversation so again, you know my disposition and my way of coming to this work is that I do my best work and support and community building with therapists who are committed to building wealth while healing generations. I do not work well with people who are only interested in building wealth. I want to be very transparent about that, but we talk money. We have to talk about money because it is a part of how we do this work, right? Or how we can't do this work, or how we can scale our businesses or not, right? And it really is the utilization of those resources that either cause harm or create access. And so I err on the side, always err on the lead on the side of how do we utilize wealth building to create generational impact. And so just so that you know, that is who I am and how I approach this work. Also, how I help other healers and therapists scale and build their businesses has to be with the undercurrent that we desire to have an impact on the lives of the people that we feel led to serve. Okay. Um, so I think that piece is important as a disclaimer, right? So thank you all for introducing yourself. Christina over on YouTube is an anxiety and trauma therapist. She's a former therapy director and clinical director, a children's activity book author. Congratulations, Christina. I love that. Constance is a provisional counselor anticipating private practice and coaching. Welcome, 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 welcome. Leslie is a private practice, have a private practice specializing in aging, grief, mood disorders, life transitions, and stress. I'm also a fiction author. Leslie is actually one of my favorite authors. And so I so love that. I don't know that I've shared with you or with you all that one of my dreams is to write romance novels. I've wanted to do that since I was a very young girl, probably when I was reading books that were not age appropriate. But if I didn't have to worry about work or money or whatever, I would absolutely be writing. And so I absolutely love that you have that other piece as well. We have Angela, who's an LCPC, who owns a small virtual group practice, is working towards certification in trauma therapy. Congratulations, Angela. And Carolyn is in Northport, New York, is an LCSW, private practice, accepts some insurance, but looks for more private pay. Yeah, that diversification. So niches in trauma, EMDR, as well as ADHD, late teens, young adults, adults, and elders. Y'all, we have the largest amount of aging population than we've ever had in our country. And there aren't enough of us who are trained and niching down and working with an aging population and doing that with care and doing it in a way that honors the journey, right? Their lived experience. Because even though they're aging population, it doesn't mean that we're always preparing them for end of life, right? Especially with the life expectancy and lifespan being, again, some of the longest. People are living longer, right? And so we have to help folks with figuring out how to age in place, how to age gracefully, and how to do that in a way that honors that they are still here, right? Constant also has authored a parenting book and workbook. I love it. Okay, continue introducing yourself, please, to one another in the chat, whichever platform that you're on. All right, so I want to give you a roadmap of where we're going today. I didn't fully introduce myself, but I am a group practice owner. I have a group practice where we have over 200 team members. We're in 17 locations across 7 states, y'all. It's a big mamma jamma, much bigger than I even had the vision for at the time. I also provide income strategies for mental health professionals wanting to scale from 6 to 7 figures and beyond. And so there's a variety of ways that I assist clinicians with doing so. For the past 8 years, I've helped clinicians go from launching to scaling a private practice to diversifying. And so that's where I hang my wheelhouse. That actually blends my background, my experience, because a therapist, being a therapist is actually a second career for me. I started my work as a corporate executive, rebuilding and vitalizing underperforming teams. My client at the time was Walmart. Some of you all may have heard of them. And my job was to make sure that we were profitable, that we had good market share, that we had good pricing, so that our sales team and our field team, my job was to build the strategy, oversee implementation, those things. And so I actually take those income strategy, revenue optimization skills that I learned in corporate and got to practice in places like Nestle and Walmart and Pfizer. And I now do that for and with mental health professionals. And so occasionally folks who remember me from that part of my life will ask me to come back and help their team. And so I still do some corporate consulting, mostly on the mental health and wellness side, but I do get called in occasionally from some of those kind of old colleagues and friends who will ask me to come back and do some income strategy, team revitalization, things of that nature. But my preference really is to work for in the mental health space, but to combine those two different worlds. I say that because many of you all have skills that come from different careers and different times in your life or volunteer experiences, right? I have a lot of experience creating experiences, serving, volunteering that I learned in church, y'all, that are transferable skills. And so anytime you are pivoting or expanding, I want you to give yourself permission to leverage the fullness of your expertise and your lived experience to do that. We are very rarely starting from scratch. Most of us are starting and scaling with experience. And so I just want you to give you permission to honor wherever you have been. And if you're a God girl like me or a faith-based person, whatever that looks like for you, or even just a purpose-driven person, I fundamentally believe that none of the spaces and places we've been is wasted, right? That it will be used for your good when you're in alignment. So again, that's a little bit about my disposition and the why. So here's the roadmap. I want you to know where we're going. We have to talk about why we get stuck and where we get stuck. And then I'm going to give you some strategies using my 3-part framework on how to get unstuck, right? And then we're going to do a live demo about how we can utilize AI, not in a way that utilizes client care, but in a way that helps you figure out what your offer actually should be. What should your first revenue stream be if you're looking to diversify? Because that's where many of you all get stuck. You have all of this experience and all of these things you could be doing. Some of the things you've already started doing, and yet it's not actually bringing in consistent recurring revenue, right? And so I'm going to ask you as we go along to set some goals. How many of you all know that when you set a goal and develop a plan to meet the goal, you're more likely to accomplish the goal, right? It's the reason we do treatment plans and then we evaluate in 90 days. And so we're going to use the same thing that we know about behavior and around goal planning and goal setting to our advantage and take our own advice, right? To some degree. I also need you to know that in a moment, not only will you have homework, you also will need to take notes. So this is not a training that you're going to want to multitask. You want to really want to be kind of fully locked in, right? All right, so let's really get into it. I want to talk about the pain that nobody talks about. We talked about it, y'all, but we're talking about it in these private groups. We're talking about it one-on-one, and we're talking about it in the context of feeling shame or feeling fear. And so oftentimes, whether you're in solo, it really should say private practice, feels like a roller coaster. It's feast or famine. It's referrals, the push and pull, the fee. If a client doesn't show up, we don't get paid. And it's a constant cycle of feast and famine that leads to burnout, to disengagement, to resentment. The thing that we got sold on was freedom, and it doesn't feel free, right? I wonder if you are aware of this statistic. 60% of private practices report income swings, especially in this time of year, that swings downward, upward of 20%. Has anybody other than me experienced that? That we have what we call the summer slump, right? And sometimes it happens again. It's cyclical for some of us. It's seasonal. So again, I don't know, that spot right between Thanksgiving and Christmas gets real suspicious, right? And that can absolutely destabilize your practice. It can absolutely jeopardize your financial stability and security for yourself and your family. That can make private practice unsustainable, right? And so I don't know about you, but I had enough a couple of years ago where I was constantly on this yo-yo. And I'm going to share with you exactly what I did to scale my business, not only from 6 figures to 7 figures and ultimately to 8. My practice, which is a hybrid of insurance and private pay, as well as contracts that has diversified income streams, consistently has done over $17 million. We are set to do 22 this year. If we do nothing else, right? If we lose this major contract with the federal government, we will still hit $17 million, which is a big deal, right? The other piece that's actually for me the biggest flex is that every single full-time member of my team makes 6 figures. My clinical director just celebrated his 13th year anniversary with the practice on Monday. That's a big honor for me. That doesn't happen by chance, right? The average retention rate for our clinicians is 7 years, which means we have folks that have been there longer, folks that have not been there. And that includes our interns who on average are with us for 2.5 years, right? And so for me, that's the thing that I am most proud of is that not only have we built a business that is sustainable, right? But that also does well by our people. Because I don't think that you have to choose between purpose and profit. So I want to normalize that piece for those of you that feel like you have to choose. And so this is a little bit about that piece. The single best thing that I have done in my business, and when people ask me, Ajetta, if you could do anything differently, what would you do? And I'm going to tell you, I would have fired myself immediately from admin work. I would have immediately systematized the SOP around client acquisition and onboarding and outsourced it immediately. It was the single biggest barrier to us scaling from 6 to 7 figures because I was not in my CEO seat. I was doing things right? With my billable hour at the time was $150 an hour, and I was doing a $25 an hour job. My business could not afford for me to be doing the admin. And in fact, I was inefficient. I was inefficient because I also had to do the clinical work and the documentation and the supervision and the leadership. And so guess what wasn't happening? The visionary work that allowed us to scale the practice, the SOPs. It's the reason that my first hire was a 1099 and needed to be a W-2 because I wasn't in my visionary in my CEO seat to know that that wasn't the right way to onboard them, that the IRS and Department of Labor was going to have something to say about them being misclassified, right? My blind spots, because I was overwhelmed and not properly in my position, couldn't outgrow what really was the unhealed trauma that had me convinced that if I wanted it done well, I had to do it myself. When really it was a cop out for keeping the information on running the business in my head. It also allowed me to pretend that I was the MVP in the business. And a business that has the CEO as the MVP is a business that cannot operate without you. And we already know what that feels like. Yes? That we go on vacation and we have our phone and our laptop. We go off on the weekend and we're still checking emails, right? We don't really have any boundaries or time off. And when we're not working, our income is suspicious, right? And that's the stress that is never ending, right? So what? So what do we do? One of the things other than creating systems was to lock in multiple income streams. And I want you all to type the word streams in the chat. This is really important. And so I want to make sure that we are tuned in. I need you all to type the word streams in the chat. And that'll give me permission to tell you a thing that is causing you harm and keeping you from truly being able to scale your revenue. YouTube, I need your participation. All right. So I see that Zoom is locked in. We'll wait. Type streams. Thanks, Reese. Thanks, Christina. Right? There's more of you on YouTube. I don't see you in the chat. You have to be active, an active participant in your success, which is the reason I constantly ask you to engage. So you're an active participant in your success. Because if you are not, you are a passive contributor to your sabotage. All right. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your cooperation. The reason that I need you to say type streams of income is because what often happens when we are unfocused and when we keep launching things without a strategy is that instead of launching income streams that are scalable, sustainable, and predictable, we often launch streams of struggle. I know I'm stepping on somebody's toes right now. You have created that course and it's out in the marketplace, but you're overextended. So you don't actually have a marketing plan for the people who need it to even know that it's available. So it's out there, it's available for purchase, but nobody knows it exists. You have been positioning yourself as a speaker, but you've not been posting thought leadership based content. So people aren't checking for you. They're not booking you. They're not reaching out to you. You have written a book that only sold during your launch week, or hasn't broken the $1,000 mark, which most authors never see. And it's not because the product is bad, it's the product isn't visible. Because we created a stream of income without giving it the legs it needed to actually scale and to pay us consistently. They can't flow you if they don't know you. And so I want your streams and your intellectual property to pay off, right? I just want your bank account to match your effort, which would be okay. Would be okay. Somebody type okay. That would be all right with me. If my bank account matches the level at which you serve. That's my desire for you all, right? It's certainly what I want for myself. Here's the other piece is that I want you to have a space where a strategy that you can shift and pivot so that you're responsive and not reactive. So we're not panicking during economic shifts. Here's the thing is that we actually serve in a recession-proof industry. And we can test that. There are very few things that you can prove. We can test and disprove theories, but you work in a recession-proof industry. Here's how I know. And here's how you know, because I don't want you to just take my word for it. I want you to go get the receipts and fact check it. I want you to go and let's actually do this exercise together and pull up, y'all, while I'm online with you all, my children are currently stealing my car keys. Okay. They behind this camera and eject me for these car keys. That's okay. That's their business. Okay. Listen, I want you to pull up whatever research system you use, whether it's ChatGPT, Google, Gemini, Perplexity, whatever your research tool is. And I want you to ask it, pick a year that you know that we were in a recession or that you know that we were in COVID, and ask it, what percentage did the mental health industry grow in that year, in that time period? So you can even put 2021 to 2023. What percentage did the industry grow in that time period? And type it in the chat, because I need for you to understand, while everyone understands the value of this industry and they are counting on you not knowing. So I want someone to drop the number of what you found in your chat. I always do this exercise with us. You can even pick a specific company. You can say, how much revenue did United Healthcare grow in 2021 to 2023? And y'all, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's gonna piss you smooth off. Listen, we have a number, 53% in 2022. 53% in 2022. Who else has a number? Roughly 15 billion. I would say that it's more than that. I would say that's a low estimate, very low. Who else has numbers? Percentages or otherwise? Anyone else? 2020, $383 billion. 2023, $428 billion. Now, someone asked the research assistant, what in the next 5 years, what is the estimated growth of the mental health industry? What is the estimated growth of the mental health industry? Combined service use, all conditions, is 22% increase just from March to December versus January to February. We're taking a quarter, not even, of 2020, I'm sorry. So what is the estimate? It's less vulnerable than any other industry. The only industry that is buffered more than we are is the life insurance industry. The life insurance industry has produced a profit for 200 consecutive years. It doesn't make you want to slide down in your seat. Because some of you all have life insurance, but you're not getting paid dividends because you don't have the right life insurance vehicle that's paying you for that industry consistently growing, because we know people are being born and people are dying. It is a stable industry that is predictable, that is consistent. It has paid dividends for 200 consecutive years. So we have one number that by 2030, it is projected to be a $560 billion industry. Y'all, this is annual. On the low end is $423 billion. You work, this should say multi-billion, this should say 960 billion. Right now, it is a 96 billion dollar industry. So when I tell you that every single mental health practitioner could have a 7-figure practice, this is why. There aren't even enough of us. We are outnumbered. For every one clinician, and it's for every one licensed clinician, there are 70,000 clients looking for services. 70,000 to 1. We are not recruiting clinicians to the field at the rate that we need to, right? This is so critical. Was it but in the company? Can we do one more exercise? Because I feel like when we talk about money, because in a minute I'm going to ask you to set income goals. And I want you to set income goals in the context of the industry in which you serve, not the context of your belief systems about what is possible, but the context of what is reality. The money is going to be spent. It might as well be with you. You might as well claim your portion. Yes? So I want you to pick one of the VC-backed companies or one of the insurance companies, Headway, Alma, Grow, Rula, Sondermine, United Healthcare, Aetna, Cigna, and just ask whatever research engine you're using how much revenue they have generated in 2025. And mind you, it is only going to report quarter one and quarter two revenue because we're in quarter three right now. But ask it, and I need you to put it in the chat because I need for you to understand that the only thing standing between you and a scalable, profitable business is the belief that you do not believe that you are disconnected from wealth because of the way that other people have weaponized it. All right. So let's drop those numbers in the chat. Now, any of the companies, what they have generated this year alone. And I'll do United Healthcare. United Healthcare. And its estimate, 233 million for Alma in 2025, 490 million for Headway. And I like to choose Headway and Alma because they do not exist. Their companies do not exist without your credentials, and they do not exist if therapists don't work with them. You are their bread and butter. Their unique selling position is that they provide the middleman between insurance companies and practitioners. Those companies were the single biggest way that insurance companies, if you've noticed, have been able to significantly reduce their phone staff and phone banks. You can't even call a number these days because these companies have come in and said, we will deal with the clinicians so that you don't have to. That's what they told the insurance company. And it will cost you less to pay us than it would to have to pay a salary. Yeah, Headway is actually 750 million. It will cost you less to pay us to manage the clinicians, their billing, and the things that they lack the administrative and business acumen to do on their own. I need you to understand what they are saying about you to secure the contract with the insurance company. United Healthcare Group is forecasted to do 345 billion. Now, y'all, that does not include the fact that United Healthcare Group has a parent company that includes Optum, that includes their partnership with Talkspace and other ventures. There's another $100 billion that is estimated to come from Optum Health, Optum Insight, Optum RX. They're online services that are digital products alone. Right? So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you in a moment to set your income goal. Because you work in a multi-billion-dollar industry, it makes no sense for the most highly trained and highly qualified people to make the least amount of money. So this is a good place for you all to take a screenshot, which I very rarely say, so that you know the 3-part framework that you need to implement and address in order to scale your business and to scale it in a way that is sustainable. So the number one is that we have to address mindset and move from abundance has to override scarcity and the fear. And we'll talk about how to do that. Number 2 is systems over the solo hustle. And even the solo hustle when you're in a group, because some of us have hired people and we're still doing the job that we're paying somebody else to do. Uh-oh. I've been there, done that, right? It may be because we're micromanaging, maybe because it's a mishire, whatever it is, you're still owning the task because we can't fully release it or delegate it because it doesn't get done if we're not still in the weeds on it. And then number 3 is experimentation engine and AI boost. So we're going to do a live demo here. I'll play a live demo for you all. And then VIP, we're going to do that exercise together because I want you all to walk away with ideas for your offer and a strategy for your next steps. All right. And so if you're over on YouTube and you know that you want direct coaching around your offers, the team has pinned a link for you all to upgrade to come over on Zoom with us. All right. So number one, around the abundance beating scarcity, we absolutely have to address the gaps in mindset that impact how we are building our business, how we're bringing referrals in, and where we're sitting. So one of the major problems that we have is that we're hunting for referrals like they're disappearing, but you're outnumbered. And so what often happens is our marketing isn't calling people in, it's only calling people out, and the right people may not be seeing the marketing. And can we be really honest here, right? Because we're amongst friends, we're amongst family. This is a safe space. Some of us aren't marketing. We have passive marketing like directory listings. So we're relying on somebody else's platform that we have no control over to push our profiles to the client, the right client. When, how many of you all have a website that you're hosting that you can go in and edit? If you have a website, type a 2 in the chat for me. If you have your own website, type the 2 in the chat. It looks like most of you all do. We're waiting for you. YouTube is a little bit delayed. That's okay. Which means you have a storefront that's open 24/7. That's not making you the money that it should. Because your website should be, when properly positioned, your single biggest referral source. So if it's not, I want you to put as your to-do to optimize your website so that it does bring in clients while you're sleeping. So that would be a piece of homework, okay? The truth is that clients not only are, you're outnumbered from a demand perspective, but also I want you to think about that clients need support beyond one-on-one. So I want you to think about if we're outnumbered 1 to 70,000, there's some people who literally cannot access therapy because your time is limited. Number one, there aren't enough of us in our niches, right? That do the thing that we do with our disposition, right? That they need another way to access support. Another exercise I want us to do, and this is will bring things home for you authors. If you're an author and your book is not bringing in 6 figures, we need a different strategy. We need a strategy, right? And the reason that I say that is, again, pull up your research assistant, whatever you're using, and ask what was the revenue generated from books in 2024 or 2025? I like to put self-help books because that's what many of you all were paid, right? Would someone type that in and tell me in the chat some of the numbers that you got? The self-help books generated in 2024. Sometimes it separates self-help from self-improvement, right? But if we just look at the broader category, so if we just look at self-improvement products in the marketplace, in 2024 alone, it was $59.2 billion. Just in fiction books was 11.38 billion. That is your lane, Leslie. Go get your money, friend. The broad estimates, if we include self-improvement, right, which include books on like coaching, things of that nature, that brings it to, that was another $50 billion by itself. The global book market, all genres included, is $151 billion in 2024. So you can't tell me that there isn't enough money in the marketplace. The US market alone did $40.5 billion. My book, The Gift of Grief, has sold on all 7 continents. It's a 7-figure strategy. It is required or supplemental text in 33 universities. It is a part of my retirement plan. But I wrote that book in 20, I wrote it, it took me a while to write it because I ruminated and kept tweaking and all the things that we do, right? Fixated on it, all, yada, yada, yada. Sold the book in 2020. So in less than 5 years, it is in 33 universities and has sold all around the world. I'm getting my portion. So when we look at the numbers, it gets really hard to convince yourself to play small. This is the reason that I want data to help you dispute any thought you have that it can happen for me, but that it cannot happen for you. Here's the other piece is that if we look at the fastest growing industry within self-help books is personal development. It's expected to grow 7% between 2025 and 2023. This is your lane, friends. All that magic you keep locked up, all the psychoeducation that you do behind closed doors, you need to be monetizing it. Not only monetizing it, but I want you to think about the lives that you could change, about the books that have changed your life. In fact, how dare you keep it to yourself? So I want you asking the question, where else can I share my expertise? I love books because people buy books. Corporations buy books in bulk. Buy books in bulk. The federal government buys books in bulk. Your public library will buy your book in every variation that it exists because ADA requires it. Public funded universities have to buy the book in every variation it exists in. We can keep doing this all day long, right? Because some people aren't coming to therapy and some people want to supplement what they are learning in therapy, right? To improve their life. And there are no better experts than you to take up space in the self-help industry. There's something like less than 7% of self-help books are written by clinicians. Writing these books. It's not you all. Yeah? Okay. I don't know if that upsets anybody other than me. So the systems over the solo hustle. Again, the problem that we have is that your revenue stalls when you step away. So you've not created freedom. We have created a space that perpetuates the hustle. I absolutely hate it when I hear clinicians asking, hey y'all, what are your side hustles? I want you all to stop hustling. You have $1 million skill set and we keep hustling. We keep allowing other companies to maximize and leverage our expertise because we won't protect it. And so what's a solution for you reducing the hustle and allowing you to have revenue that continues even when you step away? Is to automate so that clients can be onboarded even in your absence. To automate your screening process. Automate the billing and the client follow-up with simple standard operating procedures so that your money flows even when you're off. But your money is not limited to you being able to be, you sitting in a seat across from the client. So that when, not if, grief shows up at your door, you don't have to force yourself to work through that loss. I was so grateful and fortunate when my grandfather died, and 9 months to the day my oldest brother died, that I could pause. And I was off for 42 unplanned days, and my income didn't change. My bills sure as heck didn't change, but I didn't have to force myself to go back. I had a business I could return to because there were systems in place. There was team in place. All the information and knowledge wasn't in my head. And unfortunately, this past May, when my grandmother died, I was able to take that time off without interruption to the people that I serve. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I want you to have the breathing room to be where you need to be and not where you have to be. That's the why, right? The 7 figures isn't so that you can hoard the money and keep it to yourself. Scaling the 8 figures allowed us to be able to say, hey, not only can every member of our team make 6 figures, none of our full-time members work more than 26 hours a week. All of our full-time members have diversified income. My clinical director that just celebrated 13 years, when he hit his 10-year mark, we were able to offer him a pension. None of those things are possible if I didn't make sure that revenue and profit was in place. See, I scaled and focused on profit without jeopardizing quality of life for my people so that I don't have to compete on how to attract and retain qualified folks because I can build a place where they feel like they can thrive across time, across their career. And when they are ready to go off and do their own thing, we've created a culture where we will walk them through that transition as well. You should not start from scratch when I've been in the game 13 years because you can leverage the power of collective knowledge and community, right? And so when we had an apartment complex in our neighborhood that left 178 people unhoused, we didn't have to go ask who could we donate to. We could go book rooms at the hotel because we had enough to not have to ask for permission to serve. That there's not a single client we have to turn away because of capacity to pay because we have enough. I'm talking about the overflow of your living legacy, not the thing that you leave behind, but the thing that you can stand in while you're here. I don't know what is driving you, but that's what drives me. That regardless of how long my grandmother lived, I could keep her in her home. That was my promise I made to her. And so I had to work differently with two young children, right? And so the third secret and part of the secret sauce of the framework is that experimentation has to be a part of the process. And I always use this example that we get paralyzed by the thought of what if it fails? We get paralysis analysis and we won't launch the thing. We'll leak it and nobody knows. It's just kind of dripping out the faucet as opposed to turning it full on, doing a full press tour marketing strategy campaign to give it what it needs to be successful. And so we get paralyzed by the thought of what if it flops? I'll tell you that your 7, 8, and 9-figure CEOs and companies that you admire failed, but they failed faster and got back up. See, when multi-billion-dollar companies have failures, they invest multiple billions of dollars in research and development. That's what they call it. And half of those products never make it off of the thoughts and the design table because they failed in research and development. They don't call it failure. They call it research and development. We call it failure, right? I don't know if you all know. So one of my very first like big kid jobs, I was an adult with a salary and a company car and American Express as a pharmaceutical sales rep for Pfizer. Y'all, one of my very first products that was very brand new to the market was Zithromax. We know the Z-Pack, Norvasc, Lipitor, and Viagra. Mind you, I was 18 years old, okay? But let me tell you, that blue pill got me in all the places. Do you know that Viagra was created by accident? This is public knowledge. But this is information we had to know as a pharmaceutical sales rep in order to sell this product. That it was created by accident. It was actually initially designed for blood pressure. And what they realized is that it was doing something very interesting in men. That it was a vasodilator, right? It was dilating certain cells that make a certain response, right? And when they got the right concoction, that response could be sustained in a healthy way. See, Viagra was created by accident. Could you imagine what would have happened if they said, oh my God, this is a terrible side effect. Let's shut this down. No, they said, wait a minute. What's happening for women? Can we tweak the dose? Can we change the binding agent and do this on purpose and not by happenstance? But listen, that's also how most of our antibiotics was created. How we learned through the tragedy of Tuskegee of how penicillin treats syphilis through experimentation that we call research and development in every other industry. But in private practice, when the idea doesn't succeed the first time, we internalize it as failure instead of focusing on what worked and doing it again and launching until you can't fail. And so experimentation has to be reframed as research and development and learning. So it gives you the breathing room to be curious about if this doesn't work, what can I tweak? Y'all, I did the same webinar consecutive weeks. People ask me, oh my God, how did you do X, Y, and Z? I kept doing it until I couldn't get it wrong. I did the same exact webinar. I tweaked one thing each time, and it took me 6 consecutive weeks to get the framework, the sequencing right. And so now at least I can do a webinar without any notes. No, I got more reps in. The data says it takes roughly 10,000 hours for you to be an expert. And so anytime you're telling yourself, I'm not good at, I want you to say, I'm still getting my hours. I'm still putting my reps in, right? Reframe the thinking around what failure means. Failure is inevitable. It's what you do in response that changes the game for you. All right. If that did something, opened or freed you up, if that was the gym, can type that in the chat. I am working on words of affirmation these days, y'all. It used to be a huge trigger for me. Yes, I give them freely, but to make sure that we're still on the same page together. Yes? Okay. So I'm gonna give you all a moment for that piece because I want to show you a few things because I don't want to just inspire you. I don't want to just tell you what we're doing wrong without giving you solutions and strategies to do things differently. Okay. So I want you to pop 2 to 3 words in the chat that highlight your expertise. We're going to need it in just a minute. I also want you to go ahead and grab your bio because I'm going to ask you over in VIP. We're going to do this together. I'm going to show you a video for those of you in general admission. It's still, again, still you have time to come over to VIP if you want to map out what your next 90 days need to look like. And I want you to pick one to test it with your network. And I want you to commit to iterating quickly and not committing to not getting stuck, committing to learning. All right. So if you have your keywords that describe your expertise, type keyword in the chat or type your keywords in the chat. Either one will work. Type your keywords in the chat. All right. Now, I want you to think about your ideal business. If you have your ideal business with no barriers and you could, that business exists this time next year, it's making the money that it needs to make. You're taking home the money that you desire to make with the schedule that you desire. I want you to type what amount of money are you paying yourself? And there's no barriers to this goal. There are no barriers to this goal. It is a thing that is already happening. Yep. So this time next year, 1 year out, you have the ideal business, working your ideal schedule with whatever your ideal offers are, services, products, what have you. How much money are you paying yourself? And it's okay if you put the amount of money that you're generating, right? So that you have the money to pay yourself. Okay. Whichever number you want to put, what you're paying yourself or what you're generating. But the generating number has to be able to pay you. I love it. I see $1 million in there annually. Listen, let me tell you something, my friend Angela. The $1 million was the total revenue, and it would be okay if you decided that that was the what you wanted to pay yourself. Then the next year we can shoot there, okay? 500K, 150, 300,000, 20,000 a month. Okay. What else we got? Success is planned. Success leaves clues. For the seven-figure business, we're not hustling our way there. It is pure strategy, strategies and systems. And so we have to make the desire plain so that we then know how we're going to get there. Okay, 200K. Excellent. So we have our keywords. All right. So I'm going to show you what I did for one of my clients, one of my consultant clients, whose goal is to generate, I think it was 250 a year. Pulling it all together. Again, your mindset, you deserve more than your hourly fees. I need you to understand that. Systems are critical. Automation is a form of self-care and liberation. And experimentation is a part of the process. And so let's normalize it. We validate quickly. And so again, the reason I did the same webinar for 6 consecutive weeks is because I got data in 6 consecutive weeks. I had instant information that allowed me to make an informed decision and an informed pivot. I was not pulling it. I was not guessing. Right? And I knew exactly what to launch. Here's a screenshot I want you to take because it has your homework, and I will drop the link to these. You'll get the link to the 30 ways to diversify when you take one final action I'm going to ask you to do. Okay. So I want you to block off 30 minutes this week to map one new offer. VIP, we're going to map your offer together. The Pivot Partner GPT that I'm going to give you all for free is going to map your next 90 days based on the goals that you are setting. So if you say, hey, in 1 year, I want to be able to pay myself $200,000, we're going to tell it the approximate percentage your overhead is. And in the next 90 days, what do I need to be doing in order to be on track to hit that goal? You're going to leave with a plan. So again, general admission, for those of you over on YouTube, this is your final invitation to go ahead and upgrade to VIP so you can check the pinned comment over on the YouTube page. Uh-oh. If you're on Zoom, go ahead and make sure you mute yourself. All right. So everyone's going to get access to the free diversification, 30 ways to diversify, but the Pivot Partner is specific for, I think we actually included it, but VIP, we're going to go through together. So there's no sound on here. So just watch the screen here, and then I'll talk you through it. So let me pause this for just a second because we started with, the question was, I want to move from seeing one-on-one clients to adding 10K a month and speaking and consulting in the next 90 days. That is the specific goal that my client wanted, right? And I trained this custom GPT to essentially have an 8-figure CEO and income strategist in your back pocket. All right? So it even sounds like me. Let's go. Right? So it said, hey, we got some stuff. We need to know something about your business. And so we gave it this information so it could create a SWOT. What is a SWOT analysis? Y'all, a SWOT analysis is analyzing the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats, and not yet, Jill. And the C in this instance is capacity. Because we also asked it how much time, it's going to ask you a series of questions. How much time can you dedicate to actually working on this income stream? And